Good evening. It's 7 p.m. Arizona time, and we're going to start our session on NFTs, DAOs, and ecosystems, and some of the dynamics that are going on there. My name is Jay Carpenter. I am the founder of Desert Blockchain, and this is our monthly session that we have on the fourth Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Arizona time, and on various topics. So if you're not familiar with this, we are joined by some citizens, Desert Blockchain citizens, which you can become a citizen for $10 a month via Patreon. We're completely community supported, and we appreciate your support. But if you're not a citizen, then you're welcome to follow along on YouTube, which is free. And if you're you should be able to see the YouTube link in the meetup and LinkedIn and so forth. And feel free to post your comments in the chat on YouTube. I'm following that. I'll be relaying those comments as we go. But so originally tonight was scheduled to be with Jason Horton of Nori, and he has some really awesome NFT innovations that he's created, and he's gotten worldwide notoriety on that, his innovations. And Jason had a kind of an emergency happen, and he is rescheduled for March the 23rd. So please tune in for that. But I think we've got some folks on tonight, and we've got some conversation that you'll find very interesting. We're going to be talking about some of the legal aspects of NFTs and DAOs and what's going on, and some of the folks on tonight have firsthand experience with that. So let me quickly, before I introduce the other folks that are on the Zoom that will be talking, I'll kind of quickly run through this slide presentation, and then we'll turn it over to Chad and John and Professor Marchant, and Charlie, you're welcome to chime in as well. But let me run through this just to kind of set the conversation, and then we'll pretty much open it up. Also watch for the comments in YouTube. So here's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about one of the components that I've been rather shocked by recently is the amount of resistance, animosity around NFTs, and it's starting to spill into cryptocurrency as well by the developer community. So I wanted to mention that. We're not going to dwell a lot on it tonight. And if anybody's watching on the YouTube live stream and you're a developer and you are opposed to NFTs and so forth, I'd really be interested to have you express why you are opposing NFTs if you are. But that's one of our main topics tonight. Why is this so divisive within the developer ecosystem? And then we're going to be talking about how NFTs and DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, are combining. And NFTs, if you don't know, I don't think I've defined this yet, but that stands for Non-Fungible Tokens. And this has been the sort of the hotness of the last 6 months to a year. It's crazy what's going on here. We're going to show some examples. But then we'll look a little bit, talk about some NFT and DAO use cases, talk about some of the legal considerations, have some open discussion. So what kind of kicked off this whole crazy thing was there's an artist name that goes by the handle of Beeple. And sometime last year, early last year, just about this time, a piece of digital art that he created sold at Sotheby's, I believe it is, for Christie's for $69 million. Now, I think it's wise to, take all these prices with a grain of salt. Who knows what's really going on here? And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But here's the article that kind of announced this or summarized this Beeple NFT that went for $69 million. And that kind of lit a match in the whole craze of this NFT thing. But now what's happening is developers that I'm encountering, that I'm seeing posts on Twitter and so forth, they're starting to push back big time on NFTs and cryptocurrency and so forth in the gaming realm and other realms. And I'm still interested to hear why the developers are opposed to NFTs. I've got some speculation that I'll touch upon in a moment. But here's another article that's somewhat related about in-game NFTs are generating heavy resistance. And these are two fairly recent articles. But I think that the whole non-fungible token realm and the cryptocurrency realm is viewed as being riddled with fraud, and there's no doubt about that. I'm sure John and Chad will talk about that to some degree, but there are some very interesting use cases that are emerging using non-fungible tokens and decentralized autonomous organizations. And this is a podcast that just was published today, and it talks about how Julian Assange, his community has created an NFT or set of NFTs that has raised about $50 million for his legal defense fund and to basically achieve freedom for him. And they are forming or have formed a decentralized autonomous organization. And it appears, I wasn't aware of this, but I believe Ross Ulbricht of Silk Road fame has also launched something similar. And Edward Snowden apparently has launched something similar as well. So here's an interesting combination of this new realm of property that I call a digital envelope, which is an NFT effectively, and then this new realm of organization structure, a DAO, combining and having an impact in a highly charged political realm and context. So I think that's really, really interesting. And it highlights the breadth of some of this, some of the developments that are happening now. So we have John Lord with us tonight, whose day job is with Amazon Web Services. And we also have Chad Eylander, whose day job is with CVS Healthcare. And I'm sure they will both say this as well, but they are not representing their respective companies tonight. They are on because they are very steeped into NFTs, the NFT ecosystem. They've got some firsthand experience, and they're going to share that with us tonight. And here's a list of their topics, and they'll be going over this, but and Chad will be sharing some screen shares on some of these items, but we're going to be talking about some of these items. Particularly interesting is how venture capital funding is starting to interact with these projects. I'm interested to hear about that. So that's about all I have. There is one other thing that I'll touch upon that I just was notified. There's something called the State of Innovation Summit coming up next Thursday. It's free. It's basically sponsored by the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. It's going to have some blockchain experts on it as well. So I will, I'll leave it at that screen share, but I'm going to stop screen sharing. And let's turn it over. Chad, why don't you kick it off? Tell us if you'll introduce yourself and then maybe introduce John and
Yeah, sure.
start talking about your topics. Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Jay. My name's Chad Eylander. I've been a member of Desert Blockchain for, I don't know, what, like 2.5 years now. I got to be one of the best, longest lasting members, Jay.
You are. You're ready to take my position. So
yeah, exactly.
turn over the whole thing to you.
Yeah, so I've been kind of involved with a lot of different blockchain activities here in the Phoenix area, and kind of been following the cryptocurrency space since probably the last 5 years seriously, but since Bitcoin back in the day. And then my friend John here works at AWS. Him and I have been kind of following the NFT growth over the last couple of years, and have kind of been there from the very beginning, which honestly is only like a year and a half ago, to kind of where it is now. And there's a lot of different kind of experiences that we've noticed and projects that we have gone through, which is like hundreds and hundreds of projects. And so in many ways, I feel like there is kind of a .com bubble situation where there's a couple winners, maybe 2 or 3. And there's 2 of them right now that are big winners that are kind of going into the VC route. And so we kind of want to highlight Pixelvault and their project right now, because they're getting a lot of attention. And John's been basically ear to the ground on all of the Pixelvault stuff for the last year and a half, and knows a lot about it. And so we kind of want to give an example of the utility that they give in their NFTs, because it's unique in the ecosystem. Most projects are going to struggle with providing utility, and they kind of have to make things up after they have an initial like money grab period with some art or something like that. Whereas Pixelvault has attracted attention of VCs, large gaming companies, and have taken the next step that I think a couple projects will take out of this space. And so
Chad, I'm going to interrupt you. I would like to say that, this is not a promotion of Pixelvault. None of us are being paid by Pixelvault or anything like that. We're simply highlighting what John and Chad have deemed as interesting projects that are doing some things that they think has merit and it's worth the time.
Out of thousands, this is probably one.
Yeah, cool. So just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Oh yeah. No, this is not financial advice. But it is interesting that from the beginning of Pixelvault, there was a period where I would call it affordable for a newbie who was kind of interested and wants to get involved. No longer is most of their stuff what I would consider affordable. And so it already is kind of passed into the next realm of investor. So anyway, John, you kind of want to give an intro on how you got involved and stuff like this?
Yeah. Thanks, Chad. So hi, everybody. My name is John Lord. As you guys can see from the start of the presentation, I do work for Amazon Web Services, but this is not a representation of that. But more joining because I'm, was uniquely curious into NFTs and have been following crypto currencies and all that since. Jay, is it working?
It's working. I am sorry. I forgot to start the record on internally here. So I'm going to go ahead and start that.
Okay.
My slip up. So sorry about that.
Yeah, our identities are preserved.
That's right.
Yeah. And so basically starting in 2017 is when Chad and I as friends got curious about cryptocurrency and what was possible, right? So we were looking at layer ones, and I think as maybe a lot of you were looking at different layer ones and altcoins, and seeing the rise of Bitcoin, and I think it kind of perked everybody's ears up about what is cryptocurrency, what is the blockchain, kind of understanding and learning more about that and soaking that in. And then it really got deep into NFTs, and that's when it was, we were curious about where do NFTs go? Is it something that an NFT on the blockchain is going to be this immutable? Is it going to be a concert ticket? Is it going to be art? Like there's all these different ways that NFTs can go in different directions. And then just as of about 8 months ago is when it got even more dynamic with the rise of businesses trying to grow through NFTs, whether that be 10,000, a collection of 10,000 profile picture NFTs where they give you ownership of the IP, or if it's just one-to-one type of art that you see on a platform like Super Rare. And in doing that, it was trying to understand like where was the, why is there perceived value in this? Like, where is that coming from? Is that from art collecting? Is it from someone taking a speculative chance on it, like with a risk reward chance that, this might, if I mint this NFT, is there a business or company behind it that has utility? And we'll kind of dive deeper into like the DAO structure side of, is this going to grow over time? Like if we're looking at this, and I think really where we kind of landed with this on getting a better understanding of, what an NFT is if you're looking at the underlying blockchain that the NFT resides on. So if it's going to be an NFT on Ethereum, if you have, a strong conviction that you feel Ethereum is going to perform well over the next 10 years, and like, again, not financial advice, but if you felt that something like Ethereum was going to perform well, and then you see that there's going to be a business that's creating an NFT that has utility, and we'll provide a few examples today, but if you feel that that NFT is going to also increase value faster than what at the rate of what Ethereum would, so if you're looking at it then as like it's an asset inside of an asset class, right? So people are leveraging this NFT and trading those NFTs to acquire more Ethereum over time. I think that's kind of a simple, basic way of stating that, but I want to make sure that we're going to be following our agenda here, as there's quite a bit that we need to touch on.
That's a really good point. This is actually one of the only ways that some people, myself included, was able to accumulate a lot of like layer one Solana. I would have never ever ended up with a huge stack of it had it ever been not for NFTs and trading these things, because I wouldn't have just the cash to buy Solana. And so there's that market aspect that I think has created something. And I'm not saying it's like good all the time. There's a bunch of scams and stuff, but the reality is there is a yield there that gives you opportunity where there wasn't any. So,
and I will say, in the decentralized manner of it, if you think about why there's such high risk reward, if you look at traditional investing, when you are trying to buy a stock right now, unless you're an angel investor, which you'd need to be an accredited investor, someone who makes over $200,000 a year or have or $1 million of liquid assets to be able to be an accredited investor, there is no barrier of entry with NFTs. And I think that's what's the real attractive side of that, is anybody who has a computer can download a MetaMask wallet for Ethereum, go buy Ethereum on Coinbase, transfer it there, and then be able to mint at low prices. And these, quote unquote, some of them that do have bona fide companies behind them that are actually building utility like video games and media, like, traditional media mediums behind what the NFT is representing. That's how they're raising their money, right? So that's how they're getting investment money coming through. So where you have someone that you could go without needing credentials of being accredited, you could go mint something for around a 0.08 Ethereum mint cost. And then based off of speculation alone, or where the consumer confidence is of where they think it's going to go, there can be exponential gains. And that's why we've seen this asset class perform so well. But with it, I mean, I think as Chad mentioned at the start of this, I think we're really seeing this being it's acting very similar to the .com boom. And I would assume it could continue to go that way, where, 98% of these may not be worth anything, but there are going to be some winners. I think if anything, of it being Web3 and essentially a new version of the internet that we can operate off of, I think you're going to see there's going to be innovation and there are going to be some winners. It's just, are you going to be, I guess, investing in the correct ones, quote unquote. But again, like, I think, and anybody who's in this space always has to lead with the fact that it's not financial advice. It's extremely speculative and very risky, but there are great gains that can be made from it.
So it sounds to me, and I'm not as well versed on NFTs as you two are, but it sounds like it's like a lottery ticket purchase. It has some characteristics
Yeah, but
It
characteristics
can
of
be. I
that.
think there's
But
there's so much.
it's multi-dimension.
Yeah.
So it's got a lottery ticket characteristic. It also has, because of you can accumulate cryptocurrency associated with it, like Solana and so forth. It's also got some sort of like true yield to it, or
Yeah,
at
and
least some of them do. And then the third characteristic that you were talking about before the session is, if you've got a character that's associated with a game that's in development, and the company that's building the game decides to focus on that character, it could be like investing in the very early career of the next generation of movie stars, basically.
Mhm.
Are those kind of the three areas of attraction: lottery, some sort of yield, and then
Yeah, I think
buying a character early who might become a big popular character?
Yeah, there are. I think, you'd started it off talking about Beeple, and really where I see that, whether or not we think it's worth $69 billion, I kind of, I kind of compare that to something as being like, imagine if you were buying the very first piece of art that was painted on canvas, right? Like, this is a very brand new thing. And Beeple being one of the very first to mint an NFT art piece, and he's a very high quality artist with what he creates. I think that's where there's perceived value from somebody, right? Like, that's kind of the beauty of art, is it's kind of in the eye of the beholder. So that's one version of an NFT, would be art. But then there's going to be other projects that are going to be looking to build utility and video games, or even like, there's even now music companies that are creating NFTs that are, working as a decentralized organization to be the record label, right? So there's a lot of new ways that this can branch off and go. We're really at just the start of this, but with where this grows, at the same time, there's also going to be a lot of bad actors, and we're seeing a lot of that as well. Like, with the good, there's always the bad.
Okay, so we can take a look over at Pixelvault at kind of an example for one of these. I'll share my screen, and just for people who are kind of newer into NFTs, when you want to figure out what's going on with an NFT project, you kind of have to be on Twitter. That's a really good spot to start. Let me see if I can share the screen here. Okay, so here's the Twitter for MetaHero Universe. This is a Pixelvault company. This is one of their NFT offerings. And so this is kind of where you go, where they update a lot of information, and they have a Discord as well. And if you're a super geek and you really want to do like the deep research on the team and project, you have to join the Discord and start talking to people on the development team and get a feel for where the project's going. And so we'll jump over to their kind of core identities and kind of explain what these are and what utility they are supposedly going to bring in the future, and kind of how this attracted VC attention. And so, John, can you kind of explain what a core identity is?
Yeah, Chad, you might want to actually go to their website too, because I think that will probably be able to give people a lot more information on this, to what they do. But to provide some context here, so really, this is a pretty complex project to understand with what they're doing. But Pixelvault, in theory, they're looking to be a decentralized, their aspirations are to be somewhat of a decentralized Disney, right? So, and this being one of the lanes they're going in is MetaHero Universe, where you have the ability to mint your own superhero that they have intentions and plans to build a video game around. And in being able to mint the generative identities that they have for a MetaHero, those are going to be in-game playable characters. They also have another tier above that. That's the core heroes, which is what Chad is showing here. And those are ones that Pixelvault as a company intends to use for additional media. So they're looking to also build an animated series. They also have created a comic book series. So those are other ways that they're looking to leverage their NFT IP, if you will. and that's kind of just the start of one swim lane that they're in currently. But if people are looking to buy these, there's there could be more than one reason as to why someone finds it attractive. You have a low mint price, and then it's, in today's day and age, it's almost like digital flexing in some ways has been seen as being more important than physical flexing in today's world. So, some people will put these as their profile pictures on Twitter, and they kind of use it as a way to have kind of a hidden identity on Twitter. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen that with multiple NFT profile pictures. Yeah, I think, Chad, where else do you want to take that?
So here's an example of one of them violates. There's only 4 of these are actually for sale right now. Most people are not even listing these for sale. And this one's at $647,000 for just this one. So if you are the owner, then this is one where you would get a piece of marketing activity if this is chosen to be in the game or the comic book?
And I don't want to speak exactly to what Pixelvault's intentions are on this, but with, as you guys are seeing, like the list prices there, when you're operating off of OpenSea, which is what this exchange is that you're attaching a MetaMask wallet to, you as the individual owner of that NFT, once you've minted it, or if you bought it off this secondary market on OpenSea, you own it. You don't have to put it for sale, but you also can sell it. And so this is those individuals setting the price for that in Ethereum. They don't show that they have WETH offerings, which would be wrapped Ethereum. But people also can go on there and offer you wrapped Ethereum amounts for that. But yeah, I think to really see what they're selling for, you could go, they have activity tabs as well. But like, I think to Chad's point is like, these can, I think what we're seeing is that there's a marketplace that's here for them. There's thousands of different projects. And I think, I guess I want to know, are we ready to kind of go more deep into kind of the decentralized autonomous organization side of how these are set up? And
well, let's pause a second. I'd like to go over
and questions are good too.
A couple of questions. Let's see. First of all, Professor Marchant or Charlie, do you have any questions before we go into some of the YouTube questions?
I'm not right now. Thank you.
Okay.
Why would anyone want to pay $600,000 for that graphic? I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Yeah, it's really hard to wrap your head around it. I mean, for me, it seems like, because you look at something like that and you're going, well, you could buy that cash with a home in a lot of areas, right?
I'd like to live in an apartment forever and then own this instead, right? Like,
well, I think it's the speculation is, if you could imagine at the beginning of the Star Wars series, if you had the ability to buy the character Luke Skywalker, with the speculation that, he was going to be a central character to the whole franchise, or Darth Vader or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Or if you could buy the rights to Darth Vader, or some portion of those rights, that's what I'm gaining an appreciation for out of this, conversation. Now,
so in other words, the fact that this character will be in an important online game is really what's going to create the value for it then, not that picture in and of itself.
Yeah,
right.
Correct. Their intent, like that's that, and this is the risky side of this, right? Is that they have a roadmap to saying that this is what they want to produce, right? They, when you have these NFT companies that they're looking to create a video game or a comic book series or a Netflix animated series, right? And that's where it makes it challenging to, to know who are the, I guess, know who's legitimate and who are the pretenders out of all these thousands of different projects that have these things going on.
Right.
And, really, so if you're coming in late to this and you weren't someone who was able to mint for 0.08 Ethereum to be lucky enough to mint that character, you're having to come in after the fact and either invest a lot of money up front to get that with what you had Ethereum wise, which makes it more risky. But there's, I think it's understanding how to research. Like, it really is so much of it's doing your own research of understanding, how would you know if they're legitimate companies? Are you able to see, is the team doxed, right? Like, is who the NFT's CEO, or are their developers doxed? you know, because I think a lot of that, if it comes back to people's reputation, they don't want to tarnish that reputation that they have, right? Because that can follow you wherever you go. And if you were someone who was a bad actor and created a project that was just a money grab and didn't produce anything behind it, like you're going to lose people's trust. And so, you know, you'll see some articles that are being like pulled up now of like, you're seeing VC companies get involved. And these are ones that I would say you should be able to have a higher level of trust with, as you're seeing that, you know, VC companies, they would, you know, when they're investing, they're looking at things that they can 10x in, right? They're not trying to invest in companies that are going to lose. And so it should have higher confidence if people are looking to try to get into this space, and, you know, I guess kind of have a higher threshold of confidence that they're not going to, you know, straight lose money or have it dip dramatically. I think these are the type of things that you need to look into before trusting that you should try to mint or buy off a secondary on specific projects.
Right.
Yeah. So, Gary, does that answer?
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thanks.
Okay, good. I'm gonna just kind of pick a question or two out of the chat and in YouTube. And so there was a question by David about, you know, how can he be sure that he is getting the intellectual property rights, the IP rights to make an NFT or license. I'm going to go ahead and take a stab at that and draw another analogy and simultaneously show my age. But basically what you're buying is a contemporary version of a private registry. So I believe when Beanie Babies came out and, you know, other quote collectibles, the company that was issuing those would have kind of a registry of authenticity and how many Beanie Babies were, you know, made and what's the supply. And you know, my mother used to collect these Franklin plates that were supposed to be, you know, really valuable in the future. And I'm pretty sure they had a similar type of arrangement where they kept a registry of how many of these plates had been created and all that sort of thing. And I think what you're buying here is very much akin to that, but you know, your stamp of authenticity is more decentralized because you've got this, you know, link on a blockchain that's pointing out to some sort of digital repository like IPFS and whatever. But you've got an even broader community that can see your claim, at least in a certain dimension, to the rights to this digital art or this digital piece and so forth. So I think, you know, you don't, David, you don't have any assurance that you're going to, you know, be able to maintain the IP rights or license or anything else. You're just hoping that you're in the cocktail party that's going to be the cocktail party to be in 10 years, but you have no clue, you know, whether or not that's going to happen.
Yeah, ownership in general is hard to define still.
So I'm sorry, I interrupted, but John and Chad, if you guys want to go deeper into the DAO aspects and some of the VC legal issues and some of those items, I think that'd be a great time.
Yeah, I kind of, John, I want to get your thoughts on kind of how the project changed from your perspective when they announced that they had partnered with a VC, and what you think, how you think that changes their roadmap and approach over the next coming years when they actually want to build some more intellectual property that's not in the crypto space, like games, comics, movies.
Chad, you want to stop your screen share while we're going into this?
Yeah, I think it's a unique thing, right? So where, you know, the VCs come in, I think it, you know, on the surface, it gives me a higher level of confidence that they're a legitimate operation, right? So that's attractive to me on that level. But there's also pushback. Like you hear some people that are also frustrated that a venture capitalist company would come in because they want it to be grassroots investing that comes in just from those people buying the NFTs. on the secondary market or through new NFT launches from that same provider, that's how they're wanting money to be raised, right? So in a completely decentralized manner, and not letting like traditional Web2 companies or investments like VC companies come in. But like I said, I see it as being, I think it's kind of more of a feather in the cap. I think it's a good thing. I think if you're looking to scale long term, I think naturally you're going to see that this would need to migrate in that direction either way. I don't think you could completely decouple yourself from the Web2 and just business world all up with how investing moves. So, to me, I see that as being added confidence, also increased funds. Right now, that team has an additional amount of funding to go make what their plans were as a reality. They now have a vested party, and for the sake of what we've seen with Pixelvault and like Bored Ape Yacht Club, Pixelvault getting 100 million, and I believe Bored Ape Yacht Club got something around, at least is rumored to have around like a $500 million investment with their venture capitalists. Now they have a lot of funds to go make these play to earn video games a reality, and to go after some of these media platforms to see if they can get animated series that are developed and created. So that's really how I see that. But it's up for interpretation with the Web3 side of being decentralized. Some people like it, some don't.
John, do you feel like they're going to be pressure, or ultimately are on the path to now IPO and in the future? And do you think that is positive or negative for the NFT price? Because I think that's something that like a lot of people who are in early are concerned about. But I don't think I think it's inevitable. But I just want to get your thoughts on where you think that.
Yeah, I'm not an attorney. I'll just say that outright. Like, so I don't know what the legality is or how that would be structured. I think it'd be the first of our kind that we see that. Like, we have yet to see an NFT company go public, right? And I don't know what the complexities behind it would be on like a split method, right? Like having, because you have one side that's tied to Web3 with Ethereum, right? Where you're getting your investments and resales through Ethereum on the NFT that you are purchasing and holding. And then if you're to go public, that's also then opening up shares that are not Web3, right? So you'd have kind of like the Web2 buying traditional stock shares. And then, so I would be curious to know how they would structure that. Like, how does that value come in? Maybe there's a scenario where people who are, or individuals who are NFT holders, maybe they get like priority seeding rounds. Like, I know that there's been like, if people are familiar with like the company of Start Engine, they basically do crowdfunding. So maybe there'd be crowdfunding rounds where they do those with, if you're a holder, you have priority access to crowdfund. I'm not sure of how that would work, but I think that we'll likely see some company in our time try that if it's, if there's a way to, navigate kind of the legal fields and nuances of making something like that a reality.
Well, yeah, because
there is a question in the YouTube chat about VCs tending to control or wanting to control, let's say, what sorts of NFTs are minted and so forth. Is there any indication so far that that's going to be a problem?
Yeah, that was a big concern. So I was, a listener into the call where Pixelvault had to talk about how they had Velvet Sea that was onboarded as a VC when they were investing the $100 million into Pixelvault. And that was one of the top concerns was, VC companies are notoriously known for, wanting to kind of guide directions of where things go, or they can, right? Not every VC. And I don't think that's, I think it kind of can vary, right? But, so Velvet Sea on that call, they were saying that we completely trust where they're trying to go as a company. We're here to fund and then be able to help problems as they arise, right? Like, but, with anything, I think you have to kind of see where the proof in the pudding is along the way, right? Is the VC trying to guide too much of it? And that is always a risk, right? I mean, I don't think you're going to get rid of, investment firms looking to have entries into the space, but it'll be like which ones are able to do this well. And, I think part of it would be looking into the track record that those VC companies have had, like who else have, what other internet businesses have they grown? Do they have a strong track record of success? And if they do there, maybe that gives you a little more confidence to understand that this could still go in the right direction, even though it is, kind of a separation between Web 2, Web 3.
Well, it also is bringing up a question in my mind is, could, let's say, a disgruntled investor in one of the VC funds come back later on and say, hey, you guys have breached your fiduciary responsibility by, basically squandering my investment in these, thin air, worthless cartoons. So anyway, I don't want to dwell on that, but
Yeah.
there are some really interesting dynamics that are bubbling up out of this
Well,
conversation.
I only have one question regarding that more is, so do you think the way the VC in the future makes money is on sales, marketing, memorabilia, which are like point of sale type stuff where they would get a large percentage? The reason I bring up the go public thing is because they don't have a way to easily gain ownership of any part of Pixelvault unless they take ownership of a lot of the NFTs, which are independently on sale now. And so I would see they would go the IPO route, so then they could get a percentage ownership from the very beginning, and then have what would be like a stock instrument or security that gives them a guaranteed ownership. And that's the ownership part, because they're not going to buy up 30% of NFTs on there to say they own. That's not how they would operate.
Yeah, Chad, I can go a little bit deeper into how we've seen that they're looking to be separating this or providing value back to the VC companies. So
yeah, that's what I'm curious about.
And this gets complex. Like I said, this is something that could be a very long conversation. But on the surface level of it, when we're going back to what Pixelvault as a company was looking to build with those meta heroes as a play to earn video game, where they've created a digital currency that they have called POW token. And so POW token, which is tradable, like you could go buy it off of Uniswap, right? Like with Ethereum, you could go swap for POW token. But as they created a new, with tokenomics and created a token, I would bet that these venture capitalists are getting a percentage of the tokenized asset, right? To where the performance of that asset, I'm sure they're likely getting a percentage of POW token and looking to grow the company and grow the utility, right? Like if the video game is popular and it's growing and people are playing it and they're continuing to buy NFTs and that POW token's price rises and that VC company has that money, they're incentivized to trying to help the company grow the underlying token.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I think it's tricky with a utility token because they're going to want high liquidity. And I don't think they necessarily have it set up right now for like an ownership type share. So that's just my personal opinions on why I think they might do the IPO thing. But there's lots of ways to monetize it. It's just, that's kind of the one thing is like, make sure they're going to make sure they make money. How are they going to do it? So there's lots of different ways.
I've got another analogy to share that's kind of coming to my mind, but this is, and I used to be a very successful securities broker, but these NFTs are kind of starting to look like if you took a stock certificate and you drew a cartoon, let's say, on the back of it. That's what's coming to my mind around these NFTs is, whatever the image is only a piece of it. And that's sort of what makes it also non-fungible is, every stock certificate until you draw this cartoon on it is fungible. It doesn't matter if, what the number is on the stock certificate, but as soon as I draw my own special little cartoon on the back of the fungible stock certificate, it becomes non-fungible. And then all of a sudden it takes on like a new dimension. So
yeah, I think that's a great way to phrase that. And part of why I think we're seeing some of these collections get extremely expensive is if you look at it in that lens of it being like a stock certificate. Well, if you're buying like traditional stock, say you want to try to go buy, Microsoft, Amazon, Google stock. I mean, you have a couple 100 million shares that you can purchase. And it's the price per share. Well, when you have these collections and they're limited, they only have 10,000 NFTs in the collection. And if it's trying to grow as a company, I mean, yes, they'll need to likely make more NFTs as time goes on, right? But
And
with it being a limited amount, that's how these prices can go up very fast. Because you're owning only one of a small amount of NFTs that are available, that essentially is giving you a small percentage of ownership, if you will, into that organization behind it.
They've
well,
been doing a
also
lot of that too.
another analogy would be like, okay, I've got this fungible stock certificate, and I am hoping that the next Jackson Pollock or Pablo Picasso is going to be the one who scratches out a cartoon on the back, and that's going to give it some sort of unique characteristics that's going to be even more valuable than all the other stock certificates that have some cartoon on the back as well. So this is really interesting. Well, I would like to shift over to the DAO dimension of it, because that's yet another blurring of what's going on, because theoretically a decentralized autonomous organization is just that. You're basically creating this like a constitution, a set of rules, governance. You're winding it up and you're letting it go out in the wild, and it's just going to take on a life of its own. And so maybe John, if you would share, it's my understanding you've got some firsthand experience with some of the legal dimensions that are cropping up around these DAOs that are also combined with NFTs that might have VC backing, and just the whole pot of soup is blurring together.
Yeah, I mean, it's become quite the attractive buzzword, right? So people hear DAO, and it's become something to where people, they get excited about it. Oh, decentralized autonomous organization, great. We're going to get a percentage of the revenue that comes in, right? Well, these, NFTs operate just like regular companies. They have to adhere to US tax laws, right? So whether it's decentralized autonomous organization or not, like they have to be legally set up properly to be able to be even considered a DAO, right? So, one of the joking terms that they kind of say now, is it a DAO or is it a DO, right? Like a DO just being just a decentralized organization, but it doesn't, it's not a DAO, right? So, some of these, larger projects that are now getting some of the VC backing, they're bringing in legal experts. Like they're hiring legal representatives from firms like Fenwick to be able to set up their DAOs in a legal structure, right? And there's a lot, they have to be very careful with US securities laws, right? Like if they're trying to, notify that their holders get a percentage of revenue, well, that could be seen as like now you're classifying yourself as a security essentially, right? So
or something.
They need to be able to set up themselves legally. And really where we're seeing kind of these DAOs migrate to is more being, I guess, a group of individuals that, as the owners of that NFT, to be able to more make voting decisions on a project's direction, but not necessarily getting revenue. Like I said, they're not trying to be classified as a US security. So that's really where we're seeing that kind of mature. And it's more that these are actually, if they are going to be a DAO, they will have to legally set themselves up accordingly. Otherwise, I would just be calling them a DO.
Right. The voting, you have voting powers, but yeah.
Well, and the voting's a little blurred because the definitive identity, you're not necessarily having individual humans voting. You've got a wallet address basically voting, which may or may not be controlled by the same human.
Yeah, that's a huge problem, because if like you own 10, you get more voting power. But if you have 10 separate wallets, how would they know they all ran by one person?
Well, they're equally weighting them out on a lot of these, where it's like if you were to even taking Pixelvault as an example again, they've got like a founders DAO token, but then they also, as they're building out the video game, they're using the solar system. And so each planet, right, has its own DAO, right? Or they have a number of tokens or a number of NFTs for that. And each planet is able to then vote on like how their planet is going to be structured, how it's going to be built for the video game when that planet is created within that video game. So, and if you're a holder of that NFT, it's going to provide you a space within like the Discord, how Chad mentioned earlier, where a lot of these conversations are happening in the Discord. if you have that NFT, it's going to get you like a one-to-one type of voting right to be able to have your input, where maybe they'll put up a poll and everybody that has that NFT is going to take a vote on which way they want that decision to go.
Yeah, you have to be a holder of the planet to even get in the Discord channel. So I will have you know, I am in a very special Discord channel because I own one singular planet. So I mean, there's lots of different.
So have you already designed your throne, Chad?
Yeah, well, yeah,
with
yeah.
your crown?
And one day I
Do
will.
you have
own
like a
property.
scepter?
Jay, one day I will own property on this planet. It won't be on Earth. It'll be digital, and it'll probably, hopefully, be worth more than a physical piece of property, right? Like, who wants physical property? Yeah.
The Chad planet. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's open it up for any questions or conversations. We've there was a question, I believe, about carbon related NFTs. We're going to save that for next month when Jason is with us, who's the carbon sequestration expert and NFT expert. So any other comments or questions? I think this is really great. I mean, it's really, really highlighting for me what a complete blur this is all becoming. And, you know, any notion that you're going to be able to shoehorn any of this stuff into the, you know, legacy regulatory realm and regime is just, I think, completely unrealistic.
Oh yeah, never gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to mention the jurisdictional blur where, you know, you basically got a global construct that, you know, arguably is susceptible to every single jurisdiction that's on the planet, and at the same time, none of them. So really, really interesting.
I have one question for you, John. If you, so this is Pixelvault and Bored Ape Yacht Club. Kind of through all the projects you've gone through the last year, how many do you think have a reality to get where these two have gotten? Because from my experience, which isn't quite like yours, I see a very, very small amount. And I just want to kind of like get your ideas on, is this going to be a common occurrence for NFT projects, or are there only going to be two?
Yeah, and that's, you know, I guess that's kind of the $1 million question, right? Like I think a lot of people want to know that you have increasing numbers of celebrities and artists that are all trying to get, and, you know, they're all trying to, you know, I guess capture the NFT space right now. Well, you know, how many of these are going to really make it through and be successful and have it, you know, with it being speculative, like, are any of these going to be able to create something that could be like a Fortnite? Like that's a pretty lofty bet, right? Like
that's the dream, and every blockchain has their big project that is claiming that, and they're all building their own metaverse. But I can guarantee you, nobody can describe what a metaverse really is yet. So I'm just kind of interested to see if that is where it's going to go, where they're all going to do their own little metaverse thing, or will there only be one winner?
Yeah, I think a lot of them are trying to do metaverse integration, right? Where it's going to be, whether it be augmented reality, and they're trying to do stuff like where you'd have like a Minecraft type world, and you're, you know, using your VX character in that type of an environment. But like I said, we're increasingly seeing more projects tie stuff to like music, where they're trying to be the decentralized record label, you know, and I think we're going to see more different routes that this can go. Like, I mean, we even saw, I think one of the more unique things I saw is there was one that tried to create a DAO to buy the US Constitution, like
I
all
did
through
see
an
that.
NFT. So
And the
we're
crypto
seeing
kids,
some pretty wild things come
the
up.
crypto group almost got it, and
They did.
Awesome.
They almost got it. They were
They
like,
almost
yeah, they
got
were
it.
the
Then
second
some
highest
other
bidder.
rich person in the real money bought it at the last second, but I was like, the crypto kids are going to get it. True freedom.
Yeah, but
Well,
I mean, like,
one point to make for those of you that don't know, the game industry, you know, the video game industry, online gaming industry is many, many times larger than the record and the movie industry combined.
Bigger than Hollywood. Yeah, they make more money.
Way bigger than Hollywood.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're both bringing up another interesting dimension. So not only when I buy one of these NFTs, am I speculating that my particular beautiful and very scary looking NFT is going to be a main character in this particular context and realm and ecosystem called a game, but I'm also placing a bet that this game and this realm, this context, and whoever's kind of driving the quote decentralized ship, they're going to be the General Motors, Ford, or Mercedes-Benz after all the other car manufacturers sort of drop away. Because initially when the automobile came on the scene, there were many manufacturers of automobiles, and then as things moved forward, it winnowed down to 3 or 4, and that people are also, so what I'm getting from this conversation is that speculation is also at work in this whole realm.
Oh, 100%.
Can I kind of expand on that, Jay? I mean, when we're talking about the utility of these things to Gary's point, I personally am very curious to see how this increases its capacity to actually have redefined what intellectual property holding that right is, right? So if you can get paid every time somebody uses something, I mean, essentially, whether you own it or not, if you're getting a financial reward from that, you could argue that you're holding a right to that, right? So in the metaverse, whether it's maybe you're playing a movie in the metaverse, and you built a movie, you edited a movie, and somebody's playing it at a get together, like if you can automatically get rewarded as they're playing that by holding the rights to that and trade it with people, that redefines really what intellectual property is and how it is able to be transferred. And I would take it one step farther and say, there's nothing really to stop it from turning into maybe an algorithmic container. So for example, like let's say you had a piece of code that you had encapsulated in an NFT, or Jay, you were talking about a car, right? Well, the analogy would be, if the car was in the metaverse, you have this engine that everybody wants to use, or this axle, configuration, and it results in something different. Before you had those companies making that all on their own, this could potentially allow you to build this thing and reuse the same thing over and over again and trade it with people. So maybe you outsource a functionality of what you're doing to bring in a piece of code, and you use that 40,000 times on repetition, and you're getting, the owner of that is getting a cent for every time, or a Satoshi every every time it's being used, right? And then once they're done with it, and maybe it's proven value and it's actually worth more, and they can sell it for more than it was worth, or maybe they can just give it to the next person to use in their project. I don't know how exactly it works, but it just
Well, so
Charles,
let me draw another analogy.
Well, there actually
that's-
are people that are renting. You
that
are
exact
starting to see
idea.
some projects that are going to have rentable characters, if you will, in the game. So
Yes, that's the exact thing is happening right now.
yeah,
let me draw another analogy. Let's say that I was the one who wrote Mary Had a Little Lamb, or Happy Birthday.
Yep.
That's theoretically came to me in a dream, whatever. I wrote it down, I started singing it. But it's as easy to do that as to create an NFT. But now, through the cryptographic constructs of this, now imagine if I could get a penny or 2 pennies every time somebody sang Happy Birthday or Mary Had a Little Lamb, and I would get that in perpetuity. Imagine how valuable that would be. And so now I'm seeing a new dimension of this opening up, that you've got this speculation on this infinite possible cash flow if you happen to write the popular song or paint the popular image, that can now be monetized easier than older similar constructs could be
Or
monetized.
rent a
Well, it can be
character and-
fractionalized easier as well, right? So, I mean, let's say you have that you invented Happy Birthday and you're raking it in and you're getting $1 million a day, and you're like, well, I actually have this other thing that I want to invest in. I'm going to sell off a fraction, because I don't want to sell the whole thing, but I actually want to sell it. And I get the NFT and the uniqueness of it, but I mean, there's mechanisms to do fractionalization of these things, right?
There's
So
doing it right now, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, you could potentially sell off 50% of your ownership of that song, I mean, it's just not something that was doable before, and not in any sort of easily defined context. I mean, it's not easy, but it's like a lot easier than the current regulatory framework that surrounds intellectual property.
Right.
Well, and the enforcement of it's much easier
Right.
with this construct, because even if you could charge a penny per time that people saying happy birthday, how do you enforce that? You
Mhm.
can't enforce it. So anyway,
Yeah,
we're
you bring up a great point, Charles, being able to like fractionalize it and program it in, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. So
anyway,
we are at the end of our time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I would recommend that you join us again on March the 23rd at same time, 7 p.m. Arizona time. And we'll continue this conversation. This has certainly been very valuable for me, because it's opened up some new dimensions that I really hadn't considered. So I'd like to thank everybody that was involved in this, and the folks that are on YouTube as well. But we do keep it to an hour here. So John, thank you so much. Chad, thank you. Charlie, thank
for having us.
you. Gary, thank you. And yeah, let's continue this. I think it's mind-blowing how multi-dimension this whole thing is. So
So thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Charles.
Good night.
Okay.
See you, John.
bye.
Thanks, Jay.